Well, hello, ladies, germs, audience members. Thanks for tuning in to our apparently weekly Tools on Tools episodes. Oh, Tools on Tools on Tools. We have to get the name right or we will be sued. Okay, yes. Tools on Tools on Tools. And if that's taken, Tools on Tools on Tools on Tools is what we're going to call the show. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
It's going pretty good, Rob. How are you?
Okay. Yeah, thanks. We had a pretty great reception last week for the Ninja under the radar show that we're doing. Thank you for all 5,000 subscribers we got in the last week. I might be off by 5,000, but thank you for the subscriptions. And yeah, let's get into it. So this week was our 3 segments we continue to have, unless you tell us we're wrong, is like what the hell happened and what do we think about what the hell happened in the last week and cool shit. Talk about what we've been up to. And the last segment is why we're getting divorced from our partners because of the poor spending decisions we make about technology. So it's a heavy news week, Chris. Where should we start in newsland?
Oh, goodness. I mean,
what
I think
possibly happened this week that we should talk about.
What are the things that happened this week? Well, in local news, a strike was averted, so that was helpful.
Yes, we're in Toronto, Canada.
Yes.
And there's many strikes that have been averted. The transit system, the border guards. So we're not quite France yet.
Yes.
But we'll try.
We're grateful for all our public servants.
Absolutely.
And essential
grateful
services.
and indebted too, because we need it.
But in other news, WWDC happened.
The third largest company in the world had an event. I think it's the third.
Now first largest.
Back to first?
Yeah, back to first.
So the stock price is Good work, Apple. Your announcements pushed your stock price over.
Surge past Nvidia, surge past Microsoft.
Good for you.
I mean, who knows where it'll be by the time people listen to this episode? But
AI will tell us
at the time of this recording. And so I think there's like maybe not a million, but at least a dozen great takes and reviews and recaps of WWDC. So I don't think we need to do that. But I thought maybe we could talk about one highlight or one interesting thing that isn't AI, because I think we do want to talk about AI later on. But something that isn't AI that stood out to you, something that's machine learning, as per the first half of WWDC.
Well, we did a little watch party, gathering, I guess is the way to put it.
That's
and to the point that you made, the first half of the whole keynote was saying AI without saying AI. It's like machine learning. I'm like, that's AI. And we've been using AI forever. We just didn't call it that. Now it is that. So they purposefully avoided that stuff. I think what stood out for me, we're going to land on the same thing. The surprise standout. Do you want to give away your?
Oh yeah. I mean, I was genuinely impressed by the new iPad calculator application.
That's right. The most impressive thing came out of the whole fucking thing was the calculator app on the iPad, folks.
And truthfully, not even the calculator part, but the math notes part, which is just like, I feel like, like something out of science fiction, and like, obviously, like, it makes sense that we can do something like this now.
Yeah.
But it's just pretty amazing to see, literally writing out equations and it's getting solved in close to real time for you. And you can swap out variables and you can use, currencies and all kinds of stuff like that. I believe it was mentioned somewhere, like all of those features are also coming to the phone. So it's not iPad specific. It's not taking advantage of the new M4 processor or anything like that. But it like truly did look and feels like, I've tried it out, feels pretty magical.
Well, you made a point actually. So I guess the thing that stood out to me the most was how they didn't do anything to iPad OS. Everyone's like, "Oh, the new M4! Oh my God, it's gonna do what's WWDC?"
Yeah, that was on your wish list, right?
Nothing. So literally nothing. That's good because I don't need to buy another iPad. to to then be demoted to section 3 of this show
Yeah.
where we get divorced. I can stay promoted to section 1. But you made a really interesting statement while we were watching it that it really stuck in my mind, which was the kind of like the coupling of digital and physical in the math notes thing, where it's like you write a thing, it understands what you're writing, it solves for it. And there in the demo, I don't know if you have it in the beta, because I haven't tried the beta. I'm not a sucker. I've gotten to that point where I'm like, I'm too old to do this. Where there's a little dial where you can, if you write the number 4, there's a little dial that shows up underneath the number, and you can manipulate that dial, and it increments or decrements the number. In handwriting, it looks like your handwriting, I guess, or a handwriting. And there's this like physical digital thing that is kind of cool, not skeuomorphism, but it's like, let's take the best of both modalities and mush it into something cool. That to me is the most interesting creative thing that I'm like, oh, that is cool. More of that.
Yeah, it's I mean, we've talked about this briefly, but like you and I have tried, or at least I have tried to use my iPad with the pencil more. Like, I'm not an artist. I don't, I'm not drawing on it or anything like that. But there are just certain things when you want to do them, you're like, oh, like a pencil is handy to do this, like marking up documents or doing math, for example, I think, right? And so, done more of that. Appreciate what they're doing for that. Shout out to rock, paper, pencil, which adds sort of like that textured feel to the iPad. I think Paperlike is another one. But that combination, I've just like appreciated a lot. And I was doing a little workshop thing this past week, and there was a PDF to go along with it, like a workbook. And I, maybe for the first time, just like did the whole thing on the iPad, and it was good. Yeah.
But so before we get into the AI stuff, I'm curious, because the one thing I want to know, and I'm not sure if this exists in the betas or not, because maybe AI is required here, but my other request was, can you get Siri to just respond in one device somewhere and know that the other devices are responding? Have you seen any improvement there, or is it just every device responding all at the same time?
Good question. I haven't actually tried it.
Okay.
Yeah. So the only time I use Siri is when I'm driving, or if I'm walking around and I have headphones on.
I just have the HomePod, and so sometimes I'm like playing music. It's in my like dining room.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, hey, do a thing. And then it's like all my online and offline devices, because Siri works offline, respond at the same time. Some start playing, some tell me I have to be online. So I was just like, oh, again, maybe AI is required to do this. I don't know.
I don't own any HomePods. So, well, I mean, I do. I own 2 but I use it for television audio, and I have Siri disabled on them. So.
Yeah, that's probably smart. Although I feel like that's half the value of it. Although Siri's kind of dumb.
Yeah.
So
Sorry, Siri.
Well,
about to get smarter.
And is that a good segue to talk about AI?
Yeah. I mean, I before we do that, before we talk about Siri getting smarter, a couple of other, I thought, just like interesting newsy type things that happened.
Yeah.
So speaking of iPads and unlocking the power of the iPad, the Affinity suite of apps, which is both Mac and iPad, is like available in a bunch of different places. Fantastic applications, like I think legitimate alternatives to the Adobe suite when it comes to the particular set of things. So it was announced a while back, they were acquired by Canva, and now that it's official, to anyone who might care, like they're doing like a acquisition sale basically, so everything's like half off right now.
I saw that. I'm like, are they burning down the products? Like, what's?
No. I think they just like they've got this infusion of cash, and they don't quote unquote have to be profitable in and of themselves anymore necessarily, right? And so I think they want to get it into as many hands as possible. So it's like half off for creators, but they're also going to apply the same Canva licensing, which is like free for schools and not-for-profits. So there's like a wait list for that. but they're about to make it free. And so again, like in terms of just sort of like saturating the market and getting it in people's hands so people consider it as a viable alternative, I think it's like a fantastic strategy. But also the license is universal, so buy it once, works on your Mac, works on your iPad, so
and your Windows PC. The only thing is, like,
yeah.
I like that I bought it before. I don't know if I bought two. I might have bought two. Only problem I have is, like, I feel like Photomator and Pixelmator fit more in my head, if that makes sense. I find Affinity's like, here's all the things, and it's cool that it's a one-off license and whatever.
Yeah.
I personally tend to go into Pixelmator and Photomator more than that, and also I also paid for the lifetime license for
Darkroom.
Is it Darkroom? Is that the app on iOS? Yeah, Darkroom.
Yeah,
and I'm like, that also doesn't fit in my head. I think, like, for it has a good batch photo thumbs up, thumbs down type of Lightroom style thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There's something about, like, Affinity feels too complicated. Darkroom feels too not complicated, if that makes sense. Affinity or the Photomator feels good. So I'm happy that it exists. I'm happy that there's competition. I'm happy that there's these amazing tools that whatever fits inside of your head, you can not have to pay a crazy license for. But we'll see what Canva does with it. Mm-hmm.
And I think the other thing on my list here is, and I guess we'll link to it in the description, show notes, whatever. Post WWDC, NKBHD did this sit down with Tim Cook, and it's like interesting. It's like Tim Cook being Tim Cook. It's his job to be Tim Cook, but there is a particular segment that's making the rounds, which is them talking about the Magic Mouse, and I just encourage everyone to go watch it, because I don't know if he's ever going to get another interview with Tim Cook.
It's one thing to piss off.
I think it was worth it.
Superhuman, or not superhuman.
Humane.
It's one thing to piss off Humane. It's kind of different to piss off Apple. But that's cool. I actually haven't watched it. I don't know. I saw that he did the interview. But I'm now looking forward to watching it.
Yeah. Okay. So WWDC happened. There was an ML segment, and there was an AI segment. I have thoughts. I know you have thoughts. I will try and keep my thoughts concise. I have been playing with the betas, and like I said at the beginning, there is no AI in the betas yet. There's a bunch of machine learning stuff, including math notes and things like that. Sure. But the AI feature is not enabled. I imagine they'll get enabled in a later beta, or maybe not even in a later beta. It's hard to tell, like, exactly when they're going to roll them out. Some things are coming later this year. Who knows? There's been rumors of, like, a wait list that you have to get on if you even want to use them. So it's a little complicated. I think it speaks to, like, I think they are playing catch up. I think in some ways they've, like, leaped the competition in a very real sense. But I think they are playing catch up, and I think they're still kind of figuring stuff out. You have a question? You're going to say something.
How do you think they've leapfrogged the competition?
Yeah, so I think. So I watched the Google Gemini, like Google I/O stuff. I've watched the Microsoft Copilot PCs, like all of that stuff, and not in, like, any great depth, but, like, I'm generally aware. And I think that, this is the first. I mean, it's obviously very relevant to me because of my buy into the ecosystem. But I think the vision for, here's how we're going to make Siri better, and how, because your devices know so much about you, here's how we're going to, like, make all those connections work for you in a meaningful way. And here's how we're going to sprinkle AI with this sort of, like, new interface layer, basically, across the desktop, across the iPad, across the phone, and make it useful for you.
Right.
So I think that's, like, interesting and compelling, and, like, I guess, like, what I was hoping for ultimately. So yeah, so I think like that is like meaningful progress. But I mean, we talked about even like the second half of the keynote, there was like even the style of the keynote was a little bit different, and they were like, here are 3 things we're going to talk about, and so all fantastic, but it does feel like they're kind of figuring it out as they're going,
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's not a bad thing, but you know, I was bemoaning this on to friends and maybe on social media or somewhere. It's just like in some ways, on the positive side, they've done all the hardware work. They're like, we can do this on your device, privacy first, etc. Like these are all the right things, but also I think they were just like distracted for a long time with like the car and so on and so
Vision
forth.
Pro.
And so, yeah, Vision Pro. And so they're like, okay, now we have to like move a bunch of our attention to this thing. And we haven't, like, maybe they were thinking about it in pockets, but they weren't collectively thinking about it, which I think is what they need to do given how that company is run. Right.
Yeah.
And so now I feel like it has become a real priority. And so that feels good. Yeah, I'll stop there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, at the end of the day, you're right. It's the innovator's dilemma.
Right.
All of these companies have fallen prey. Microsoft just seems to have played their hand the best of this lot.
Yeah.
There's like, we can't do, I mean, Apple effectively did the same thing, right? They didn't invest $1 billion, whatever Microsoft invested, but we just found out today or yesterday, I think, because when we predicted WWDC and we were going through the predictions and what was going to happen, we were like, I was like, actually, when we were watching it, it's like, how is this free?
Yes.
Like right now you pay $20 for ChatGPT.
Yeah.
You can get it for free, but you have to pay for Pro. And it's kind of weird. I've never seen Apple ever do a thing where you're like, and you can enter your paid for key in the back end to make it even richer. I'm like, that's just weird. And it's like not through the App Store. It's just like all very weird for Apple. But also like the fact that they made the deal with OpenAI, which was what Microsoft did. And we found out yesterday, I believe the reporting seems to be that, you know, we were talking about this when we watched the thing. Who's paying who? Because remember, Apple pays, what was it, $3 billion a year or whatever the number is to Google to have, or Google pays Apple $3 billion a year to be a search result thing. Was OpenAI paying Apple? Was Apple paying OpenAI? And we seemed to have learned that it's a distribution deal. Apple gets use of their technology and they get to be on every device on the planet, which seems like an interesting deal. But
they become the default search, like the equivalent of Google being the default search engine, because Google
exactly.
Right? And
for
so
no money exchanging hands.
Yeah, they're the first API AI provider, I guess, to be featured.
Exactly. So that's super fascinating, and it speaks to how each company has tried to solve for it. Like, it's clear Apple's like device up. For both privacy reasons, but also expertise reasons. Like, what I thought was super interesting, and it's not super obvious. It's like we were talking again about this on the little watch party, which is there's processing that happens on the machine, on the handheld device that you have or the local device. Then there's Apple's data center for stuff that's too powerful. It requires more powerful compute than your local machine will have. But it's still personal crap. And then once you want to get outside of your personal sphere, then you go into AI land, which is where OpenAI would step in. And it's not obvious how that, like, to a normal human being, we did see in the things like, this is going to go to OpenAI, danger. So there's some semblance of understanding. I don't think people understand the difference, though, privacy and security wise, what that is.
No, I don't think so. I think also, like, to that point, I have a question. Like, the question I have is, so, like, I'll give you a personal example. So we were like driving somewhere recently, and I was like, we're talking about the Olympics. I'm like, oh yeah, the Olympics is this summer, right? And we should like make some plans to watch some stuff with the kids or whatever. So we're like, so I asked Siri, I was like, when is the Olympics, right? Like, when does the Olympics start or something like that? And I think the first response I literally was, I don't have a contact for Lim. Do you have I was like, no. When does the Olympic, enunciating more? When does the Olympics start or whatever it was? And I think it was like, oh, you'll have to unlock your phone for me to answer that or something because it wanted to maybe show me a web result. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
you don't know when the Olympics starts? Like, and so it's that level. I'm like, because they're like, oh, like when you want to do generative stuff, you can go to chat because I think they use the recipe as an example. Yeah, I've got these 5 ingredients. Give me a recipe. Cool.
Yeah,
that's very obvious to me. But what about this sort of like in my mind is like stuff that Siri should know, frankly, right?
Yeah,
just like facts, things like that, right?
Yeah,
and is that going to go to ChatGPT? Is that going to go to the Siri cloud? Is that going to be on device? Probably not on device, I would imagine, right?
And what's the user experience, right? Like to your point, Wolfram Alpha was the best metaphor for this, where Siri continues to source the knowledge part, like when you're asking it, like, how many calendar days between blah, blah, blah. Wolfram Alpha was sort of integrated with Siri.
Like facts, I guess.
Yeah. Right? So that was that, could be a model, but I definitely agree that, if it understands you, I understand that Apple's all about privacy and security, but I'm like, just give me the answer. Don't make me unlock my phone. Tell me the thing I'm asking you the answer to if you get it right. And even if it does go out to the web, to your point, but like where the lines are drawn, don't make me sad. Just let me.
Yeah. And again, if using this voice example, if it was like, hey, I can check on the web for you, or I can ask ChatGPT, would you like me to? Via voice, and be like, yeah, please go ahead. Just to your point, like I'm okay to say
unlock your phone if you want me to ask ChatGPT by looking at the phone while you're driving.
Yeah, exactly. Also, like, go ahead.
The point you're making, like just watching the demos, I'd be curious because you're using the betas, but watching the demos, it's sort of like the local AI, like, let me write this email for you. This is stuff that's been around for a while.
None of that exists yet.
None of that exists yet. Okay, because the demos looked kind of, you like tap and select and hold, and then it rewrites your email. I'm like, cool, I guess. It seems cumbersome. It doesn't seem like it eats a lot of, it Sherlock's a bunch of superhuman. I mean superhuman now this time when I said superhuman features, where superhuman was like moving the needle with AI faster, say, than Apple is. So it's caught up to an extent. But I'm like, it's cool and it's nice to have. It's kind of like almost like it feels like table stakes. It's like you have now caught up. Cool.
Yes.
And the thing hasn't even come out yet. So like this
is
June. We're going to see this in September, October, and that's assuming all those AI features roll out at the beginning, which they might not.
They're not. Yeah.
So who knows what ChatGPT? Maybe there'll be a ChatGPT 5 at that point. Maybe there'll be, you know what I mean?
And so I think okay. So
not that we need cutting edge on Apple stuff. That's not how Apple works.
Yeah. So I think to your point, there's a bunch of table stakes stuff, which I think is the like, the stuff that you can do with like, I don't know, Whisper or whatever, right? It's like take this text, transcribe it for me. Take this text, summarize it for me, rewrite it for me, et cetera, et cetera. Like, and all of those things, the sense I'm getting is that the Apple Silicon is powerful enough to like let you do that stuff on device, basically. Yeah. With all the research they've been doing on like compression and memory swapping and et cetera, right? Fantastic. The stuff that feels novel as an Apple user, and I think there's versions of this in other places, but is the like, I know a bunch of things about you in a way that no other cloud-based AI knows right now, right? Like, the examples they used were, I get an email that says a meeting's been rescheduled, and I can be like, will I still make it to my daughter's play on time, right? And it can like knows a bunch of things that's in your calendar. Again, it's all context that you've provided in different applications, et cetera. And so it can make this sort of like personal knowledge graph or whatever you want to call it, right? And make inferences, right? And so that's, again, it would be great if we already had this, but like that was what I was hoping for personally. I was like that, like if you can solve that problem for me, that's fantastic, right? Like, hey, what's that podcast link that Rob sent me the other day, right?
Yes.
That was another example they used, right?
Yes.
Like I'm always like, oh yeah, like 5 different apps. Was it email? Was it a phone call? Was it a text or iMessage that you sent me? Like, where do I find this link for something, right?
Yeah.
Like that, I think that people do that all the time. I think, right? And so that feels like a meaningful problem to solve with this stuff. And again, I don't think that, again, unless you were like going the Microsoft replay route, where it's like record everything on my screen, or hey, I'm going to install this new Chat GPT app that's always running, always watching everything, right? Those are hard things to do without the full access that a device would have, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Or your iCloud account or whatever, right?
I think my fear about it is that, so the problem with like, user interfaces, like this is my degree in HCI coming up, but there's expert user interfaces and there's novice user interfaces. An expert user interface is a command line. You need to know the commands, like DOS or Unix or Linux. You need to know the commands to get the things and typing the right commands in the right gateway. So Apple's innovation, actually, well, Xerox innovation, was the GUI. You move and click and whatever. So you don't need to know the command. You just say, give me that. That allows a novice to be able to be faster. It's still faster to use a command line, but now novices can use machines. And so the problem with voice is you don't. Oh, thanks, Apple. Speaking of machine learning, there was a thumbs up in case people were wondering. And if you do the rock thing, I thought I turned that off. The rock thing does the lasers. Oh yeah, like the rock fingers.
Oh yeah,
I live in the future. The problem with voice is it is an expert user interface, sort of, but you have to have in your head cognitively the thing you want to do. Like even, I don't know about you, but when I'm asking any of my voice control devices, I change my mind in the middle of the thing that I'm asking. Yeah, I'm like, no, I don't mean the bedroom. Don't do the bedroom. Do the basement or for lights or something.
I mean, they claim that they've created allowances for that kind of stuff too.
And the problem is that if it improves over time, but you don't see that improvement because you don't know what it can do. How the hell? Like, so if I'm like, it comes out, you almost can't iterate on this, because if I'm like, tell me when my son's, who's your son? You don't have this. When's the thing? If it gets it wrong, you're like, or I don't know what to do with that. Like the joke you made at the very beginning of Siri just asking a simple query. You're learning to never ask Siri that question again because it's dumb. You don't even know what you can ask it. There's a huge list of things you can even ask Siri right now that you probably don't know you ask, because as you do, you set timers. You set timers and you set an alarm. Like that's all you do with Siri. And so it has to be really, really effing good.
And maybe there'll be like so I set up Claude for the first time last week because it is now available in Canada. So this is Anthropic's AI engine, and it actually walks you through a short, I believe this is what I'm remembering, it walks you through a very short like wizard, basically. It's like, tell me your name, tell me a little bit, tell me where you live, so on and so forth, right? And so I don't know, maybe there will be some kind of like get your data in order onboarding almost, right?
You know what my mom would like to do is get her data in order. That's totally what she's going to do. Like I was actually doing this in contacts, in your Apple contacts. You add the relationships. You can do it verbally with Siri and say, Chris, friend, mom, this person. So I think like, but the joke that I was making when we were watching the thing is like, now you can lay out your grid any way you want. You can change the colors of the icon. So I'm like, this is a support nightmare. I know my family is going to change their icons to black on black and put it in like in the top right hand corner where your finger isn't big enough to like move it onto the screen, so you can get settings back in to fix it. I feel like this is what it's so like. And I think Anthropic or Claude can do. There are web applications. These are sort of expert users. They can make you do those things because you know the power of the thing you're getting. Apple's value prop is we know things about you. You can just ask it questions. And I think the second it gets it wrong, even if it improves,
you might
have given up on it. Because I've given up on Siri long time ago. I prefer Google, and I will try it once, maybe twice. And if it gets it wrong,
Yeah,
I'm done.
never again. Never again. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I
that's
agree
a
with you.
great. Yeah.
I love the idea. I love the idea.
Yeah.
Given that I often do sales things, I love the idea of getting my personal shit together so I can actually have meaningful conversations with people. And there's a lot of startups that have come and gone trying to solve for this exact problem. Apple is in a unique position to do it, but
Yeah.
Apple has also a unique set of constraints.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess the short answer is we'll have to wait and see
So we
because,
spent 30 minutes on
yeah.
WWDC, minus two when we were talking about Affinity.
um, yeah. I think the last thing I'll say, just to round out my thoughts. I mean, uh, uh, people have been reminding me in various ways, like, oh, it's actually like pretty early days, actually, right?
Yeah.
We're like a couple years into this, into what is probably going to be a decades long.
Oh yeah.
Revolution in technology, or evolution at the very least. Um, but it was interesting. So so let's talk about the OpenAI
Mm-hmm.
integration in particular,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
you ask Siri. Siri is your assistant,
Mm-hmm.
and just getting activated here on my iPad. And so you ask Siri. Siri goes out to this agent, ChatGPT in this case, and asks it a question on your behalf, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it really does, in some ways, like, they've got these like app intents. There's a bunch of different things that they're creating for Siri to be able, for developers to create the ability for Siri to be able to hook into this
Yes.
stuff. But yeah, I think just like it goes back to this idea of like, you know, are we heading back to a world via technology of, where Expedia, for example, like becomes a travel agent for all intents and purposes, right? Your assistant, whatever it is it Google, is it Siri, is it whoever, knows a bunch of things about you, and you're like, hey, um, Rob and I need to go on a trip next week
Mm-hmm.
because we're interviewing so and so. Book book a train ticket for us,
Mm-hmm.
or book a plane for us, and it just knows that we like X and Y and Z, and we have these commitments, and so you can only travel in this time, and it just like reaches out to the via API or a service, and at least gets you options, right? It's like, hey, based on your schedule, these three are the best windows to travel, or something like that, right? And so there are times when you'll probably want to search for a thing, but then like in theory, it becomes possible to like ask for something, like you would your EA if you had one.
Yeah, it's a good point because since this is a nerdy podcast, there's the client server battle that's been happening over decades, which is like
Yeah,
everything should be on the client because there's more processing power. No, it should
yeah,
listen in the cloud so you can access everywhere. And so definitely Apple, when the iPhone came out, it pushed everything back out to the edge.
yeah,
And Apple likes it there, and Google likes it
yeah,
in the cloud.
yeah,
And the fight continues. And I found that over the last decade, like maybe in the 10s and 15, like 10,
yeah,
15, like 2010,
yeah,
2015 era, when there's a plethora of apps being vomited at you,
yes,
you had to become like Kayak and Expedia and all these things. Originally it was cool because you're like, I don't have to rely on a travel agent. I can
yeah,
just go to one place and
yeah,
compare prices and pick.
yeah,
But since there's a plethora of these
yes,
intermediaries, you
yeah,
effectively need to be an expert to operate those websites now.
yeah,
So I was it's funny that you picked travel. I actually thought that before this AI boom, I was like, I think I want to pay a travel agent again
yeah,
because I just want somebody to figure out. Like, do you remember we had a startup? We ran Startup Weekend, which is like in a
yeah,
weekend you do customer validation,
yes,
and and then you don't have to build a thing. The point was to show that you do customer validation. So this was literally a
yes,
decade ago.
yeah, yeah,
We had that before I worked with you at TWG. I remember running one of them, and
yeah,
there was a company called FlightFox. It still exists. FlightFox, their innovation was Sketch, and it got them in trouble. But it was, you can book, like let's say you're going New York to San Francisco, but there's a cheaper
yeah,
flight
yeah.
New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco. You just don't get on the second
Oh,
leg.
this is the like do half the half
Yeah,
one
do
leg,
half the
not the
thing.
other.
They got in a lot of trouble because the
Yeah,
airlines
yeah,
are like,
yeah,
what are you doing?
yeah,
This is not a thing you're allowed to do. And then they pivoted their business model to tell us where you want to go, and we will optimize for points and cost and all that other stuff. And it costs like $25 or something like that, or $40. I think they still exist. At least they did at the time. I'm like, that's I think what I want. And if AI can do that, which is like, I like aisle seats, I don't like night flights, I have a child, these things. If it can take all these parameters in, hopefully we don't have to then choose the AI that does travel best, because then I'll kill myself.
Right.
But I agree with you. There's a million Airbnbs, there's a million kayaks, there's a million of these services. So if you can obfuscate that layer and have somebody say, go figure that out for me, that would be fantastic. The one last question I'm going to ask you before we move on is, you're using the beta, it's beta 1. I understand there's no AI features. How does it putting the AI stuff to the side? How do you feel about the betas? Is it just like, and the icons are shinier, it's iOS 18, everything is exactly the same?
Basically.
It's been 3 days, so I'm sure you're an expert now.
I would say that they are surprisingly stable. There's little bits here and there that are like random. Battery life is good. Now I do have like 15 Pro Max. Like I've got big batteries and things like that, and so
and you don't go anywhere. It's always plugged in, so it's great.
Exactly. But generally speaking, it seems like battery life is fine.
Okay.
I haven't noticed a huge drain. I've got it on my phone. I've got it on my iPad. I've got it on my laptop. And nothing has been so terrible that I'm like. Now my Mac Mini, which is this machine right here, is going nowhere near beta because I still need at least one machine where I can do real work on. But it's been a pretty smooth experience from that perspective. Cool. Nothing feels like it's broken. And again, I think the reality is like it's because
nothing's
they haven't done much. Now, what's going to happen when they turn on
AI
Siri 2.0 or whatever? TBD.
All right.
In fact, it feels even less, but like last year's was pretty good, last year's betas, and this year feels even better.
Cool. Well, that's a lot of news, a lot of significant things, and it's cool. It's really fun to see the competition in this space. It makes me happy. I love it stuff so much. It's so cool. It's so revolutionary. You can see that it's going somewhere, and the competition is really nice.
Yes, it is. It is really nice to see everyone. Really
and we've also this is sort of a decelerator the show backstage in a sense. We've also kind of agreed, not just tacitly but explicitly, like basically the whole show will be produced, directed. Like the show will be produced, directed, edited as much as possible by AI. So our goal is to take away as many jobs as possible with the show and not pay creators for anything.
Sorry, people.
I'm joking.
I like the way you put it. I like the way 2.5 people, right? Can we run this in 2?
Well, we've got Paul. We've got a comedy writer.
We've got lots of folks. So maybe we've got lots of folks.
Yes, lots of people helping out over time. But it will be fun to see how dumb the show can be with AI.
Yes.
Yeah.
We will find new depths to fall to.
Eddie, do we want to? I know, exactly. Anything interesting before we go on to the divorce stuff? Do we want to talk about anything that happened to you this week that it's in your head that you've been up to?
No. I think this is what I've been thinking about, but I've monopolized this conversation. How has your week been? How has your week been, Rob?
Okay, it's been good. I think the two things that are embarrassing and dumb. Well, one thing is I don't know where I heard about this. I think it was like on some website somewhere, but like Scavenger's Reign, the show Scavenger's Reign. It's funny because somebody was asking me about the new. A friend of mine, Galen, is asking me about the new Star Wars show. Acolyte, I believe is the name of it.
Yes.
And it's been, as of this airing, it's been 2 episodes. It's fine. Yeah. I don't know. Have you watched it at all?
No, I'm not. It's fine. I'm not big on the Star Wars stuff, man.
It's fine. It's not Marvel weird, but it's fine. But Scavenger's Reign, I don't know. Have you watched that?
I'm aware of it. I remember seeing the trailer and being like,
so
this is Yeah, this
It is
looks
so good.
It's an HBO or Max original, right?
Yes. I thought I read that it was on Netflix somewhere,
I think yeah, it is
but in
now on
America,
Netflix.
Netflix
Yeah,
or something. I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah. Okay,
It's absolutely fantastic. It was
okay,
canceled, and Netflix bought it or
yes.
used it or has it,
Okay,
and it's one season.
yeah,
It is absolutely fantastic. I
okay.
almost hope that they don't like it does so
Right,
well
because
that they
like
don't
so good
like
together.
just leave it good.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
about
yeah,
halfway
yeah,
through it. It is
yeah,
disturbing. It's so
yeah,
creative and so thoughtful and so
yeah.
amazing. You should, if you're
Okay,
depending on when you listen to this or
yeah.
watch it this weekend if you're traveling or trying to avoid your children.
Cue it
It's
up.
amazing. It's
All
amazing.
right.
So heavy
I will
recommend.
watch it. I will watch it. Yeah.
And then the other thing is that other dorky thing was, so I've been like, I have many, maybe this goes into the divorce territory. It
Yeah,
bleeds.
yeah.
Um, I, I've always been a fan of like micro mobility, last mile stuff. I'm
Yes.
such a
Yeah.
nerd for that kind of stuff. I have
Yes.
a few bicycles because I think
Yes.
it's a disease and they all make sense. It's all rational.
Yeah, yeah.
But I had a bike that I bought at the end of the pandemic. Or actually right when I moved back to Toronto, I
Mm-hmm.
bought a bike from an American company called Propella. This is before the e-bike craze of the
Yeah. I
2020 and
remember. Yeah.
2021.
Yeah.
And it's basically, I wanted a bike that looked like a normal bicycle that
Yeah.
happened to be a bike. Because I used to have a Vespa and stuff like that. And I find that you get treated like a vehicle when you're driving something that looks like a motorcycle.
Right. Yeah.
And at
Yeah.
least
Yeah. Yeah.
and this is a show we tape in Toronto, in Ontario, in Canada. The
Yeah.
law in Toronto specifically, believe it or not, is because I read a lot about it.
Yeah.
Is there's those like if you're in the bike lane, you can ride anything. However, if
Really?
there's yes,
Oh,
they have
interesting.
to be. You don't need a license to ride an electric anything, so it can look like a motorcycle. You don't need a license at the moment, as of the
Right.
taping of this show. However,
Yes.
if you're driving on a city street that
Yeah.
is partitioned, has a
Yeah.
physical partition, like
Yeah.
a concrete barrier or stanchions,
Yeah.
you are not allowed to ride non-pedally bikes.
Right. Because I remember that was why all those e-bikes had pedals on them.
Right, but even
Yeah.
then,
Because
if it
yeah.
I think if it technically if it has a throttle, it's not allowed to be in that lane.
Oh,
So
interesting.
anyone who's riding in that lane that it looks like a scooter, even though it has those janky pedals, technically illegal. The scooters are completely illegal in Toronto as of the moment. People
Right.
still ride them.
Yeah.
But I find
I
that
didn't even realize that.
oh yeah, totally illegal.
Oh,
And our city council is thinking of keeping it that way.
but
But
not like regular scooters, just e-scooters.
e-scooters, yeah, kick scooters are fine.
Yeah.
But interestingly, so I've learned over the years that having
Yeah.
a thing that looks like a bicycle, even if it can perform well,
Yeah.
you can get away with a lot more. Not that I want to do
Right.
illegal things, but
Yeah, of
people
course.
get really mad at you if you're on a e-scooter in a bike lane, whereas if it
I
looks
remember
like
this,
you're on a
yeah,
bike. So I bought one from a Canadian company. I mean, it sources it from China. The problem I had with the Propella was that the body geometry didn't fit my body well. I found the
Right.
ride pretty harsh. It looked like a bike. And
Yeah.
it felt like a bike, but it didn't fit my body type for some reason. So I ended up getting
Yeah.
there's a Canadian company called, I think it's called Bike Tricks, BIKTRIX.ca.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think they custom design and order from China, and then they ship out
Okay.
of Saskatchewan, believe it or
Oh,
not.
wow. Okay.
And I already had bought a bike from them, a fat tire bike, because I'm a weirdo. But
Yeah.
I was like, I want a commuter
I
bike
remember you telling me about that.
where this was my pandemic purchase, because I'm like, I want to be
Yeah.
able to ride all season.
Yeah.
I bought an electric bike that's kind of like a city style commuter bike that has a different kind of position that's a little softer on my butt.
Yeah.
And I wanted a bike that I could lock up and not worry so much about, but
Yeah,
it looks like a bike.
Yeah.
And I kind of got it, like I assembled it, then I took it to a local bike shop to be like, have I assembled it properly or will I die?
Yeah.
And so they did it. And it's so interesting because the other thing to think about is I actually bought like a scootery type of bike in the interim.
Yeah.
And it's very funny. One thing is when they die, it's bad because you can't really pedal them. The pedals look like pedals, but you can't pedal it. You look like an insane person. The other thing I learned was that those are typically used now these days more for Uber deliveries. The other 50% of the users I've discovered are people who have, it seems to be drunk driving offenses and their driver's license have been taken away from them. And so they are using this to get around and deliver drugs in neighborhoods. So it's an efficient way to deliver drugs, and it's an efficient way if you've taken your license away. So I'm like, I can't be in this bucket of humans because I don't. It's just not my jam.
You don't want to get stereotyped.
I don't want to get pulled over and be like, what's in your pocket,
Right,
sir?
right.
And I don't want somebody to offer to buy off of me. And so I was like, it needs to look like a bicycle. And so far, so good. It looks like a bike. No one is offered.
So you bought another Bike Tricks or Big Tricks or whatever.
Yeah, like a city commuter style bike. And so we'll see whether I go to jail or not. But these have been my biking woes in the city. It has not been stolen yet. So it's dumb. What does Rob need? Not another bike. I bought another bike that's electric, looks like a bike. Have yet to be divorced for it.
Well, we might need to have a bike conversation because I'm considering getting a bike.
Oh, I have opinions.
So the short version is our children are becoming more mobile.
Yes.
They have scooters right now, which is fine. I can jog if I need to. But they're about to, I think, embark on on bike ownership.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we probably need something to keep up with them. Maybe just be something that we share. Sam, my wife, and I share. But I'm actually thinking of getting a Brompton. So.
Oh, cool.
Anyway,
I'd be interested to know because I've seen those. Those are like those small British foldable bikes. They were the OG, make it foldable and small. They even have electric ones. Very expensive.
Yeah.
The two problems I had with them is one is, it's okay. Aside from being very expensive, not necessarily the quality is not there.
Yeah.
But it's very expensive. And then the two other things that really got me were one, I feel like you might look like an idiot. The fact that they I worry about the stuff. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah.
But I haven't really paid too much attention. And the second thing that bugs me is when you have smaller wheels, you feel all the bumps. You have to work harder, and all the bumps feel much harder.
Interesting. Okay.
So I'm like, I've had smaller wheel bikes and it hurts. So the question is it like I've never tried one? This is a very well-made machine, so they've thought about these things. So I've never tried one, but those are my two things that I would want to see.
Yeah, I know at least a couple of people that own them.
Yeah.
And so I can probably try one, just to see what it's like. I think if we were getting one, I'd probably get the e-bike version as well.
Which is like $4,000, like some ridiculous amount of money.
Well, it's like you can get them used now, and you can get them for like a little bit under 2K Canadian now.
That's cool.
Yeah.
My rule, and the thing that's interesting about Bromptons and the foldable bikes, because Brompton actually folds down. A lot of the foldable bikes just like flip into, and then you're like, to me, the point of it is that you can take it in somewhere.
Yeah, and that's a big, like, given where we live, I'm like, I cannot leave this outside.
Oh no, but you could lock it inside somewhere as a bike, but it's problematic. The thing for me was that this is why I'm like, the bike that I got has to be lower than a certain price, so I feel less bad if it's stolen. Right.
That's
when I lock it up somewhere, but if you have a Brompton, you can fold it up and theoretically take it with you. But if you're, depending on where you're going with the kids on the other end, if you're stopping somewhere, it's heavy enough that and children wrangling might be tough.
Yeah. So we shall see. Cool. I don't think this is not going to be a quick decision, and it's going to be a joint decision. So
yes,
we'll see. So that won't get me divorced.
That's good.
But I think my 3D printing habits might get me divorced.
Tell me more, because
you have a similar addiction.
I have a similar dilemma. Yeah.
I mean, nothing crazy. Like, we talked about just how nice it is to have a 3D printer that just works consistently and reliably. And so I think when you have that, you just print more things. And so I've been on a bit of a organizing tear across our house. Given I've had sort of the space and time and mental energy to do that.
Yeah.
And so there's a couple of different grid-based systems that exist for organizing things. And so there's one that we're trying out for our kitchen, just organize drawers, yeah, basically. but in a way that's like custom, because you can like, oh, I want this size thing for my spoons, and
3.2 inch spatula.
Exactly. And then I've been playing around with Gridfinity in particular, and people have different feelings about it.
Yes.
Gridfinity is actually based on a system devised by the person who devises like kitchen system that I'm trying out. But Gridfinity is sort of like open source, and there's all kinds of like generators for it and stuff like that. So you can say like, oh, I want like this size thing, and you slide a bunch of things, and it generates the 3D
so people
file.
who are listening know, it's like Gridfinity is like you print a grid,
yes,
like a little square grid, a mesh kind of thing of certain, like maybe the grid, each square is about 1 inch in size.
Yeah, I think it's 40 millimeters.
There you go. Whatever that is in inches.
Yeah.
What a good Canadian you are. And you can say like, I want the grid to be X by Y. Yeah. Then you put it at the bottom of the drawer or place you want to live. And then you print objects that click in or like lock it. There you go. So if you're watching the podcast, if you're listening to the podcast, this is a podcast you're listening, that is the male, I suppose, or the female, I suppose.
This would be the male.
Put the items in.
Yeah.
And then they all sits on a grid. So you can make little different size cases from 1 by 1 to n by n that sit on a grid, and it keeps it in place in the drawer so they're not all sliding around. So you can customize your drawer perfectly, like a little bento box sitting on a grid.
And they are stackable as well.
And, so and they're stackable.
So you can do multiples. They've got like lids. They've got all kinds of like, really cool. People have created all kind of infinite variations of these things.
Yes.
But yeah, like I was like, oh, I want this size box. It's like, a couple inches deep, wide, maybe 4 inches, 3.5 inches wide, with the length of whatever this is. And, it took 2.5 hours to print. So
Crazy.
Like print
have you tried? I was thinking about this last night. I've not tried. So Bamboo, that printer has this like insane mode where it can print like super fast. I've never tried that.
When you print, if you print the Benchy, the first Benchy, it does it in like insane mode, or whatever, and it was impressive. But I'm like, I don't need anything that fast.
I just want to see, like, I want to like, I'm like, I don't think I want anything that lasts to be that fast. But I'm like, oh no, I need a clip for my knapsack. Do it in insane mode. Like I want to see what happens with that.
Yeah, so it's not perfect, but it's like pretty nice for what I need to do, which is just organize my desk better. So,
cool.
So the problem though is that now I need to just buy more filament.
Yes, so
we're gonna go in on a group buy, right? Is that
we are because anyone want to join us? Now that I've word to the wise, if you're buying a 3D printer for new, and I've definitely influenced somebody to do it in the last week.
Nice.
Entrepreneur. Get black, get white.
Oh yeah,
those are
lots of black
basic,
and lots of white. Yeah,
and I like matte.
Me too.
Shiny looks cheap and bad. Maybe it's because I'm used to like OG 3D printing filament, which look crappy. But it looks
so here's an interesting thing about the matte. I don't know if this is true or not, but I was reading instructions for printing something, and the person actually was implying that the matte is less strong than the not matte.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know anything about this. So it's a thing that I've got on my list to learn more about. But I'm sticking with matte though. Yeah.
Okay. The shiny molecules. Did you know that the shiny molecules are less cohesive than the not shiny molecules?
You would think. Yeah.
So I'm actually keen on, like, for me, it's like, well, I have to clearly refill my black. Apparently everything I print is black.
Yeah.
But also, I kind of want, like, there's that stone color, which looks really cool. And I feel I want that sort of
the marble or whatever.
Marbly kind of color. Yeah. Every time I see that, I'm like, it looks classy, at least in photos. I'm not sure if it's actually classy. Yeah. And then there's like a couple of like shiny, like they have this sort of glimmer. And I'm not that kind of person, but there's like, it's black, but it has flecks. It's like car paint.
Yeah.
In the sun, it reflects a particular kind of light.
Yeah.
I kind of want to try one of those wacky ones. And then my son is obsessed with the blue jay, so I need to figure out which color blue is what right 2 or 3 color blues are the right colors. But here's a question. Maybe you know the answer to this. Yeah. So with when you're ordering, you can order like refills. So you order, the way it works when you order things is a spool. Like it's like loom thing, and then the filament is threaded around the spool, and it feeds itself out. You don't need to reorder the spools. You can refill the spools, I think, by just ordering the filament and load it back up.
Yes.
I guess there's RFID in the spools that tell the machine what it is. So you really want to reload the same one with the same one. I also am like, I don't know.
No. The RFID is okay. So the way the refills work are they actually have a spool in the center. It's just a cardboard. It's like a skinny. It's just a cardboard center, and the RFID is stuck to the cardboard.
Okay,
and
so you don't. And that answers my second question: is you don't have to thread the damn, wind it around. You just like slide it on. And then you
so the spool screws open. You just pop it on, screw it back together, and you're good to go. Yeah,
that's good. Because I definitely was like, am I buying a 3D printer so that I could build 3D parts for my 3D printer? Like, is the whole point of it to build parts for my printer?
I mean, that was my wife's biggest critique of my first 3D printer. She's like, you just print things for the 3D printer.
It's the best business model ever.
Which truthfully I did.
I actually, I was going to print a poop bucket.
Yeah.
And I was like, I should print a poop bucket. I'm like, Rob, you're stupid. I have like a Ferrero Rocher empty clear bin. And I'm like,
amazing. Yeah.
I'm using that because I feel really dumb wasting money on a poop bucket.
I did print a poop bucket.
I know. And you can make them, and they look right and they fit the design and the color.
Yeah,
the one thing we should talk about next time we talk 3D printing is parameters. I'm really interested in infill. When you're changing colors, vomiting those colors inside. So you can, for the listeners, I don't know how to do this, but you can, what printer poop is when you're changing colors in printer, when you 3D print, it has to extrude the other color as much as possible so that there's no mixing of colors. So if you have like black and white, if you don't print, if you're going from black to white, if you just
get rid of all the previous colors.
It'll be a little bit of black, and then it'll be gray, and then it'll be white. So they want to, and if you're changing a lot of colors, you want to optimize for not changing a lot of colors because it's wasteful. Yeah. And here's my poop bucket I did a bunch of stuff for Cole for his school project. This is I'm going to save this for Valentine's Day. I did a bunch of dice, and the pink was changing from red to white. So I'm saving this for Valentine's as filling. But it's like, first, you can reuse poop. I don't know how you do that. Secondly, what I didn't know how to do is, I think when you fill in the inside that nobody sees, you can say, don't make poop. Use this to fill the inside of my model.
Oh, cool.
So you can say, don't make poop, make infill. Of course, if you're doing white, you don't want to do that. But if it's black, maybe it doesn't matter. So I want to learn more about like, how do you waste less? How do you, what do the different like patterns? Because you can also choose the internal patterns.
Right. Different grids and
change the aesthetic of the, potentially if it's translucent or like if it's white, you can see through. So you can see the grid that holds the scaffolding of the print together. Or what does it do for strength? So there's a lot of parameters in the software. It's called Bamboo Studio that allow you to set these things. And I've been like high resolution, low resolution, quick, slow, very basic stuff. But it'd be interesting to know whether I want to learn about the infills and can you waste less poop? Not that I print too many multicolor things, but that'd be interesting to me.
Yeah, I've definitely got a couple of videos and articles that I've watched. I would not say that I'm truthfully in a very similar position. Like, maybe I might change the go from like 2 millimeters to 4 millimeters or 6 millimeters, or like that's the kind of
the layer height
sophistication.
Layer height. Same nozzle, which vomits out glue or the thing at a particular pace, but you could choose how compact the layers are. Anyway, that's a really nerdy place to end on, I think.
But it is a good place. I think that's it for me. Thank you, Rob. Pleasure as always.
Great to talk to you. Let's see if we continue to be coupled next week.
And the usual like and subscribe. I don't know, share it with a friend if you think someone would enjoy this show. Yeah.
Tell us what we missed in Apple Land. Tell us what we missed in 3D printing land. Tell us what we missed in news land. Tell us what you've been up to. You can record a video, comment, whatever. We're anxious to hear from you how you've been tooling your life.
Yeah. All right. Have a good one.
Welcome to where everything is high tech, where robots roam the streets and cars fly above. A place where dreams become reality, you can bet. Come on, buckle up and get ready for the future. reality and artificial